I spend a lot of time in VR communities, Facebook groups, Reddits, Discords, the comments on my channel, the app formerly known as Twitter, and when it comes to the Quest 3, I keep seeing the same questions pop up over and over again. Questions about specs, questions about features, questions about the lack of features. In today's video, we're going to go over the most frequently asked questions about the Quest 3. So for most of you who've been keeping up with Quest 3 news from my previous videos or other outlets, there may not be a lot here that's new for you, but go ahead and do me a favor and tap that like button anyway. First, let's hit the basic information, which should answer several common questions. Quest 3 is expected to officially go on sale in Meta Connect on September 27th and 28th with a base 128GB model priced at $500. We don't yet know the price or how large the hard drive will be on a premium model. It should be between $550 to $600 and 256 gigs, but keep your fingers crossed for 512 because I would really like a 512 headset. If history holds, expect shipments to start a few weeks later. Last year, Quest Pro was officially announced at Meta Connect with pre-orders available on October 11th and shipments happened 2 weeks later. Quest 2 was announced in mid-September 2020 and released 4 weeks later. So either way, we're looking at mid to late October for delivery. As for the specs, we'll do the bad news first. Quest 3 will not have eye or face tracking. The field of view and battery life will be roughly the same as the Quest 2, especially for field of view. That's a big bummer. And if you saw the Quest 3's controllers are ringless and assumed they were self-tracking like the Quest Pro controllers, you'd be wrong on that. They track using a combination of hand tracking and the same slam-based tracking system that Quest 2 uses. Lastly, despite Quest 3 being 40% lighter without the faceplate, it's actually roughly the same weight as Quest 2. On the good side, the resolution will be roughly 30% greater than Quest 2, coming in at over 2K per eye. The pass-through will be full color and depth correct thanks to the depth sensor they yanked out of Quest Pro at the last second, and it will feature an IPD Wheel for more refined IPD adjustment than the 3 crappy settings on Quest 2. It'll also feature pancake lenses, which will greatly improve the visuals, and the latest mobile chip from Qualcomm, the XR2 Gen 2, reported to be twice as powerful as the Quest 2's chip. Now let's get to the questions. Will my library transfer from Quest 2? Yes and no. Quest 3 is back compatible with the Quest 2 and your Quest library is tied to your Meta account, not the headset itself. So when you get your Quest 3 and set it up, as long as you pair with the same account your Quest 2 is on, you'll be able to download all your games. The reason I said no is because I cannot guarantee that all your game saves will carry over. Cloud saving is not a universal feature on the Quest platform and it requires developers to activate it. Now I wager that 90-something% of games do have this feature, but I do need to mention that. Will any existing games get upgrades for Quest 3 like PSVR 2? To clarify this, the PlayStation VR 2 is not backwards compatible with the PSVR 1 library. This means players on the new hardware can't play classics like Astrobot, Rush of Blood, and Farpoint among others. In light of this news, multiple developers took it upon themselves to release upgrades for the PSVR 2. Some of them were free, some of them were paid. With Quest 3, we don't have that problem since it is backwards compatible to Quest 2 games. The pancake lenses will improve visuals immediately, but beyond that, we only know of one developer-driven upgrade. Skydance Interactive's The Mind Behind the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners series announced that there will be an upgraded version of the first game for Quest 3. I already own this game, so I will be doing the comparison between the two versions as soon as I get my Quest 3. The other note is from Bankrupt Games, the makers of Pavlov and Pavlov's Shack, who said that Shack will not get an upgrade for Quest 3, but it will run at a native 90Hz refresh rate. That's all we know for now, and I'll mention any other news about game upgrades in later videos. How much better will the graphics be on Quest 3 versus Quest 2? This is a bit of a loaded question because I don't think we see the true upper limits of Quest 3's power until support for Quest 2 starts to wind down, and I'd say we're a good year away from that happening. Having said that, I'm inclined to defer to Sadly's Bradley and Mateo311, two guys I've grown to trust on technical matters like this. They've both said we can expect graphical fidelity on par with 2016-2017 PCVR games running on mid to low spec hardware. While this may feel like a bit of a letdown, let me throw out some games that released in that time period. Because if a Quest 3 can match games like Robinson the Journey, Lone Echo, The Mage's Tale, From Other Suns, and Robo Recall, we're going to ignore the Quest 2 port of that game, we're going to be in pretty good shape. If you think that's just a few examples and there's a bunch of crappy looking games in those years too, I challenge you to name 1 year in gaming where there weren't a bunch of ugly looking games released. It's happened every year in 40 plus years of gaming, plus we're talking about the upper limits of what Quest 3 can do. I've said in multiple other videos that Quest 3 will not be able to match current generation high-end PC VR. Mobile VR will never reach that point of fidelity as you're comparing a chip smaller than the book of matches to a GPU almost the length of your forearm. But the gap will get closer with each generation, and this is a step in that direction. Will Quest 3 work on a Mac for Steam VR? In native Mac OS, no. The current Oculus Link software is not Mac compatible, and as of this recording, Virtual Desktop will connect you to your Mac, but you cannot run Steam VR games from it. You can just interact with your desktop. You can also do the same thing using the Immersed app, as that app has a Mac compatible desktop companion. If you want to play PC VR, you'll need to install Windows on the partition part of your hard drive or on something like Windows Parallels. Even then, you may suffer some performance as a Windows instance creates more overhead from your Mac, and I've heard some nightmares about Steam VR's performance on Mac hardware. Will my existing Quest 2 strap work for Quest 3? I've heard in multiple places that the arms of the two headsets are the same size, so theoretically they should fit, but there's a catch. On Quest 3, the USB-C port and the headphone jack are both built into the arms of the head that your strap attaches to. So if you're using a Meta Elite, a Bobo M1, or any of Kiwi straps, it's going to cover both of those ports. Looking at Quest 3 closer, I'm afraid that once you remove the default elastic strap, the ports will be protruding from the arms, meaning you'll need to cut a hole in your Quest 2 strap to fit. For the Bobo M2, the strap I currently use, the arms of that accessory don't slide all the way up, so if the arms are indeed the same size, it will fit. This is a bit of a long shot, and honestly, I would advise you to just plan on buying a new strap. Will Quest 3 have universal local dimming like Quest Pro? If you're unfamiliar with this feature, Meta recently added a software patch to Quest Pro that allowed the backlighting of the lenses to dim individually in areas of darkness. If you've listened to a PSVR 2 fan for more than about 2 seconds, you probably heard the phrase deep blacks on its OLED panels. Quest Pro still has LCD lenses, but the backlights are mini LED, meaning the brightness of each LED block can be raised and lowered individually. This was by all reports not included on Quest 3, likely as a cost-cutting measure, so don't expect to see this feature. Why doesn't Quest 3 have OLED panels? I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but it's a cost versus value proposition. Enthusiasts may not like to hear this, but OLED panels historically haven't really moved the needle for VR headset sales. The original Rift CV1 had OLED and is estimated to have sold about 500,000 units, while the Rift S moved to LCD and reportedly did just as well in sales before the Rift product line was discontinued altogether. The original Quest has OLED panels, and we all know the Quest 2 and its LCD panels have vastly outsold it. The headset regarded by VR enthusiasts as the best headset to date, the Valve Index, also has LCD lenses. OLED's biggest VR success story is probably the PlayStation VR 1, which sold about 5 million units, and the jury's still out on PSVR 2, which has been out less than a year. So if you're Meta, seeing all these sales numbers, looking at the cost and the low production yield for OLED panels compared to LCD, it makes a bit more sense. Like all of you watching this video, I wish this were different. I would love OLED panels in Quest 3, even if the visuals will still be improved thanks to the pancake lenses. Why doesn't Quest 3 have eye tracking? Oh boy. Before I answer this, a quick reminder that if you're enjoying this video, tap that like button and hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Once again, I'm going to be a broken record here. It's cost. The going market rate for eye tracking on the VR headset is around $1,000, if not more. People in my comments have been mentioning the PSVR 2 and the Pico 4 Pro. I'll address both of those in a minute. But if you look at the majority of headsets currently on the market that have eye tracking, they're all around that price range. Varjo XR3, Varjo VR3, Varjo Aero, Vive Pro Eye, Quest Pro, Pico 4 Enterprise, Pimax Crystal, and Vive Focus with a $250 add-on are around or higher than $1,000. And of those headsets, the Pico 4 Enterprise and the Quest Pro are the only two that don't require the added cost of a PC to do most of the heavy processing work. Which brings me to the PSVR 2 and the fact that it's not a standalone headset and needs a $400 PS5 to run it, so the total cost of entry for that headset is $950 right at the market rate. Then there's Pico 4 Pro. People keep saying to me in comments that this headset costs $500, so Meta should do it too. I want to congratulate those people for finding the one exception to the current market. However, Pico only sells the 4 Pro in China, and the only reason it's that cheap in that market is because Pico knows they're not going to sell a ton of them, as it's only sold to businesses over there. You can pick one up on the secondary market if you want, then have fun dealing with the pains of getting the headset to work in the region you don't live in. The international version of the headset, the Pico 4 Enterprise, currently runs about $900. Holding the one example of a cheap headset that's only available in the region you most likely do not live in as concrete proof that Meta should do the same doesn't make any sense. The market right now prices eye tracking as a premium feature that's worth more than Meta wants to sell the Quest 3 for. It's important to remember that these headsets take years to come to market, and Meta has been developing this headset in a market that didn't have eye tracking as a consumer level feature until PSVR 2's release, which we've already discussed. On top of that, eye tracking wouldn't even be a feature that's widely used. the performance increase from dynamic foveated rendering is thrown out as a reason to include eye tracking. For those who don't know, DFR is a technique where the pixels your eyes are looking at are rendered at full scale, with all the rest being reduced to improve performance. The important thing to note is DFR is not a system-wide setting. It has to be implemented by every developer for every game. And if you're a developer porting your game to PSVR 2, you had to spend some time and resources because it's a new platform you're developing on. In spite of that time investment, the majority of developers chose not to implement DFR. It's a time-consuming process, and with a lot of VR developers being small teams, they can't afford to delay their games to put that in. At the time of this video, less than half of the roughly 100 PSVR 2 games are currently using it. A developer from Hello Games, the makers of No Man's Sky, said it took the better part of 4 months to get DFR into the game. This is Hello Games we're talking about, not a small team, and they still cannot get it in at launch. They had to do it months after the fact. Now take those same developers and look at the Quest platform. They literally cannot do a thing, which most of them are, and their games will run just fine on Quest 3. They'll actually run better thanks to the power of the new chip and look better thanks to the pancake lenses. PSVR 2 is showing us that not every developer, even the ones making new games for that system built from the ground up, are going to put in the time to utilize DFR. Then there's eye track menu navigation. I'm going to pause here and applaud Apple for convincing everyone that eye track navigation should be the new industry standard. They spent nearly 20 straight minutes at WWDC showing you footage of and hard selling you on this feature. They made you want it. They made you need it. Then they showed you the price. And after you balked at the price tag, you immediately looked to the market leader in consumer price headsets, the ones most of us could actually afford, and you said, hey, I want this thing, but not for that price, so I demand that you do it for a cheaper price. Ask yourself, when you put on your gaming headset, how long do you spend in the menu before you're into your game? I wager just less than 5 minutes. So if you're gaming for an hour per session, and I bet most of you watching this video are in your headsets longer than that, you're in the menu less than 10% of the time you're in VR. So is a feature that's not utilized in every game and only used for less than 10% of the time the headset is powered on worth several hundred extra dollars to the average consumer? No, it's not. Meta's trying to create value, and eye tracking doesn't fit that model. Maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed with Quest 4 or Quest 5, but not right now. Those are the most common questions I've seen around the internet. If I missed anything, feel free to ask in the comments and I'll try to answer that to the best of my ability. If you would like to see the Quest games I'm most excited for the rest of this year, click the video on the screen right now, and as always, thank you for watching.